Hey there, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George Affleck.
And it's time for
UnSpun.
Woo! It was directed at me, that one. I don't really know what's going on there. Maybe it's because you're overworked. Are you overworked?
I had a busy week and I got to do a little new thing this week, which was you wanted me to do, you asked me to do it. I got approached by Daily Hive. They said, can you write a column or an opinion piece for us? And so I submitted it last night and it ran this morning. And it's all about the Oppenheimer Park.
Leadership.
Leadership. It's about leadership.
Leadership.
Or lack thereof.
And I really enjoyed the column. I didn't know you didn't like to camp. And that's not a direct line to Oppenheimer camping. It's just camping in general.
Yes.
I asked Amanda, George's wife, I didn't know he didn't like camping. She said, oh, we camp at the Four Seasons.
Well,
I love that.
Also, in her mind.
Camping is a martini by the pool.
I'll tell you,
is my mom's line.
See the hotel we stayed at last week in Seattle. It was not the Four Seasons.
Let's talk about leadership,
I
though.
can camp. I can camp.
You can?
My friends have taken me camping, and they've dragged me out to the Bowen Lakes for 7 days, where it's rained for 7 days and 7 nights, and 7 boots filled with water.
Intense.
Why do people do this?
I love camping.
Why?
I used to camp 3-4 times a summer up at Kalamalka Lake in the Okanagan. You have to pick your destination, so the odds are that it won't pour with rain. I went to Porpoise Bay up on Sunshine Coast once, and yeah, tarpology was important. But imagine...
My column's not about camping necessarily.
No.
Not about that kind of
We
camping.
digress.
Yes.
But in those horrible camping, first world camping problems that we have, imagine having no place to go, and the only option that you can really find is to either live on the street or camp in a city park. Because that's the situation at Oppenheimer.
Ideal.
No, but it has always happened. But it's never seemed to be as bad as it is right now.
Yeah, there's always people in Stanley Park hidden away and they're living their lives. And so this Oppenheimer Park is obviously a problem. There were 200 tents, I think, or more at the max capacity, and the decision was made finally to get these to move along. When I was on council, even with Vision Vancouver, who my arch enemies, Vision Vancouver, we made the decision to not allow it to get to a point where it became unsafe, and it was by far beyond safe. The police were even saying in this current situation that it was not safe. And
weeks ago, the police were saying.
There. Yeah.
But weeks ago, police were saying that they would not go into the park at night without a group of them.
Yes. So our mayor decided that he wasn't going to do anything. He said, well, we're going to find homes for everybody, and we're not going to move these people along. It's not the right thing to do. And so guess what? The park board had to do it. And he basically avoided the subject and let the park board take the leadership role in this. And so my point is, this is 1 year ago. This issue started. This is before the last election. People started setting up their tents in this park. An election happened. We got a new mayor, a new council, and this new mayor has taken a stand on this issue, which I think the majority, for sure we know that the majority of residents in that area, over 80%, say we can't have this. This is a park. He has decided not to do anything. And so in this case, he didn't ask the park board, just kind of took control of it.
Because it is in a park.
What bugged me most was that of the 43 communication staff yesterday, they sent out a press release stating this fact, saying it's not us, it's not the city of Vancouver, it's not the mayor moving these people out of this park, it's the park board. Don't blame us. And you're like, what are you talking about? What kind of PR
That was
move is that?
Really odd release.
Terrible public relations move in my mind. Yeah. Like what? Anyway, so that.
What would you suggest that Kennedy Stewart do in this scenario? And I don't mean how do you fix the problem. How do you lead? Because it's kind of in your column on the Daily Hive. How do you lead through something as difficult as this? This is a significant challenge on so many levels. The Downtown East Side, as you've discussed even last week in this podcast, it is out of control and beyond what anybody ever imagined. You said it was a mandated ghetto.
Yeah, and the people in this park are not all homeless. They are they're protesting the state of our society that we're in, where there are so many homeless people. They're making a statement that we need better homes. We can't move into these slumlord.
That the SROs are more dangerous.
And so that's a very valid point, 100%.
Yeah.
But in this case, the mayor definitely didn't move on this, and I think created an unsafe situation. And he basically denied that there was a real problem that had to be solved. I think that the key in politics, I think, is you have to rely on your instincts as a politician and not get too swayed. You have to listen to your people that are around you. You have to all, you think about re-election, but that shouldn't be what drives you. There are politicians in this region who are pushing forward on their agendas without worrying about what's going to happen in 3 years, or what their consultants are saying around them, or what the PR is saying around them, or what some poll is telling them. They're saying, no, this is the thing that I believe the people want me to do. And I think that in this case, Kennedy Stewart has no instinct on what the people in Vancouver, 80 to 90% of Vancouverites are saying, no, let's get this cleared out.
Fix this.
And not fix all housing.
But show up there, be the man of the people.
He's totally invisible.
He's invisible.
The media have been trying to reach him through his 43 communications staff.
Jesus, we're going to get drunk on this vodka this week.
And no response.
No response whatsoever. And so as we sit here recording UnSpun podcast, this is a very fluid situation. Last night was the deadline, 6 p.m. As you said, 200 people, 130 or 150 tents down there, and it grew. And there was a real strong stance of 50 of those tents. We're like, we're not leaving.
Staff have been great, and the police have been good at 150 of those, and they found homes for them, or whatever they've done. They're working hard at it. But there are 50 that are holding tight at this point, saying, no, we're making a stand here.
So we just want it to be a peaceful resolution to the immediate problem of a homeless camp on Oppenheimer Park that has become unsafe. And even people, I've been listening to some of my colleagues at CKNW, Nikki Reitmeyer, Claire Allen, Eric Chapman, all have made a point of going down there on numerous occasions to talk to the people within the tent city. And a couple of them have said at night it's scary, and people have come there with shotguns and
fires,
gone through people's tents at gunpoint. There's stuff going on down there we don't. Those are crazy stories.
It's not good.
So let's protect the most vulnerable.
Protect them, and when you talk about politics and leadership, talk about fluidity right now in Surrey. Decisions being made about the police force. News. This was breaking news during our recording, or right now before we came in here, which was the provincial government is setting up a committee led by
the only person who can run committees, apparently.
Wally Oppal,
former Attorney General.
BC Liberal Attorney General, leading a new committee, basically neutering Doug McCallum, taking all the power away from him on this process of building a new police force. This, of course, it means that the province at this point is not saying no to a police force.
So Doug McCallum can take that as a win.
So he's got his transit, he got his SkyTrain, and now he's got his police force. At least he's ticked those boxes off, and he can say, you know what, I did what I said I'd do.
Doing what I can.
It's leadership. It's leadership. But he has been neutered by the province, and they've taken control of the situation to figure out, I think, in my case, of what I point out is the math on it, financially and HR-wise, and a whole bunch of other things.
Right, and recruitment. Those were the three that you've been
way under budgeted in their report, and I think staffing-wise, in an almost impossible situation.
I said flippantly about Wally Oppal, but why would the NDP put a former Liberal Attorney General in charge of this file?
Yeah, it's kind of a brilliant strategic move on their part, right? So by putting a Liberal in there, and a guy who's got experience, he's 100% qualified to do this.
Yes.
But he will now put together a more comprehensive report that might take 2, 3, 5, I don't know how many years, 2 years maybe.
You said the committee word, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, so it'll be past the next election. So they're in Surrey, where they'll have those swing ridings. They might say be safe because there's been some pushback in Surrey about whether there should be RCMP or RCMP and local police force, and I'm sure NDP have been doing their polling, figuring out where do the locals stand and how will that affect the next election. So they've put a nonpartisan committee together with a leader led by a former BC Liberal AG, and so even if he comes back and says, let's do the police force, or let's not do the police force, whatever works at that moment in time, the NDP can go, it's not us, it's independent because we put that Liberal guy there, sorry.
This is what Wally says.
This is what Wally says, it's not us. And so it's a very strategic move on their part to almost wash their hands of it for the certainly till the next election. Well,
and Wally Oppal, you may or may not remember, was the one that they pulled in on the whole BC legislature mess, which Mullen came back from his security tour Did we talk?
No, we didn't talk about it last week. We were going to.
Right.
And didn't visit one.
Not one.
In Canada.
He went to 13.
What kind of
It was
tour
like
is that?
$13,000 he spent this summer over
Was
3
he
weeks.
staying at the Four Seasons Hotel? Or
Probably
was he
a
camping?
martini by the pool.
Yeah.
But I heard on Jordan Bateman and McLean Kay's podcast, the BC Poly Hot Stove, which is excellent this week, by the way. They were talking about how he went to all of these cities to research security details, I don't know, but didn't speak to any of the speakers or any of the sergeant at arms of any of the...
It's like...
So it'll be interesting to get his report.
Why?
So Wally might be busy
Why?
bouncing back to the ledge.
$14,000 they spent or
Yeah,
something? I mean, it's
13
not that
grand.
much money, I guess, but it's money.
It's my money. It's your money.
Yeah.
Don't spend my money on your summer vacay, dude. I don't even know what he does. Yeah, that's the piece about it too, is that they don't tell you enough, so the speculation becomes frustrated speculation, which I think leads us quite nicely into SNC Lavalin, right?
Yeah.
Segue. But the SNC Lavalin Ethics Commission hearings went down over the last 24 hours. But let's start with...
Did they really go down? Anyways, yeah,
Did
we'll
they
get to
really
that.
go down? Indeed. But the fascinating piece of this puzzle continues to be the polling numbers.
Yes, no surprise. And people have been talking about this, and I've said this, that I don't think this whole SNC Lavalin thing is going to affect this election. I think that it's all about Quebec for the Liberals. Clearly in Quebec, the polling that they're currently seeing right now by good quality polls, which is another issue altogether this week about
Yeah,
that.
right?
The unknown polling companies who are getting so much, coverage. You're like, who are they?
Gotta trust
their
your
poll is
pollster.
exact opposite of what every
Yeah.
other poll. And well, I guess if they're right, they'll get a lot of gigs in the future. Anyways, Quebec is polling really supportive of the federal Liberals, and the NDP are in the basement. Which is what I've always been saying, and I think that...
And the
he's
Liberals
gonna-
slightly ahead of the Conservative Party.
Overall.
Yeah,
so...
And then the
if they can
Greens,
get those
and then the
seats in
NDP.
Quebec that they lose in Ontario and BC, they're good to go for another majority. And so this issue, and in fact what they're saying in Quebec is thank you very much for supporting us in Quebec, for keeping jobs, which is their mantra. The Liberals' mantra
Yes.
is jobs, jobs, jobs. The mantra of Scheer is...
You're a criminal. You're a criminal. You're a criminal.
Yeah.
And then...
Which is a good, it's a tactic.
It is, and apparently the mudslinging is going to be pretty harsh
Yeah,
as
it's
we
gonna be an
do
ugly
get
election.
to it. You've said that time and time again with this, and they...
Negative is a very positive way to win.
Well, I found it fascinating because the Ethics Commission hearings, they were fascinating to watch. So different than American politics is our politics, if you're paying attention. Dog days of summer, nobody's paying attention. Except
We're sorry for holding
geeks
a
like us.
meeting in the summer, and we're sorry
Yeah.
we're Canada.
But Elizabeth May was speaking.
Yes.
And I have great respect for her as a person. I've had the opportunity to interview her a number of times. I've read her biography. One of the times I interviewed her, she was selling that book. And I read it cover to cover, and I found it fascinating. She's a very heartfelt, true Canadian success story of somebody who's passionate about the environment, period. Green Party, federal Green Party leader. So she was speaking at this commission, and just speaking to the fact that this is non-partisan, systemic problem in government, that it's not necessarily about Justin Trudeau or SNC Lavalin, but the fact that these are situations that the government can get themselves into because of the way it's always been done. And I've got air quotes. If you're just listening to the podcast, I've got air quotes up. It's always the way it's been done, and that needs to stop. And she was very firm in that, and she was very eloquent.
Sounds a lot like Jody Wilson's
Very
mantra,
similar.
Jody Wilson-Rayboul's mantra saying, time to change government and the way we do things.
Yes.
So
But she
alignment there.
alluded to the fact that cabinet confidentiality should be done away with to a certain degree. She didn't say, but how it's done currently is broken. It needs to be fixed and whatnot. And that really stuck with me. So I put out a tweet. I'm like, anybody else watching this? Because this is paraphrasing what Elizabeth May had said. And Keith Baldry, who is alongside you, my guru.
Yes, nice dream, he says, basically.
Yeah, and he's like, that proves, he actually used stronger wording than that. He said, this shows an ignorance as to how government works. And he doesn't use that strong of language, but he understands what cabinet confidentiality means. In camera, you explained to me in camera over the past, we're at 33 weeks now.
33 weeks.
Yeah. Almost.
Imagine when we get to 43, we get shows. It's going to be, we'll have to get real vodka.
Yeah, we'll have to get, this
anyways.
is real vodka. What are you talking about? So in camera is the municipal or
kind of. Well, there's a caucusing, right?
Right.
And in camera and committee meetings, and so the way I see it, I'm not completely fluid in understanding of all the stuff that happens federally. But basically, when cabinet meets, it's the majority of it's the people who are elected, who are within the party that's in power, and if they have a majority, then the cabinet meets to potentially have enough people in that room to make decisions that will form policy making or whatever. And I think that's kind of what she's alluding to. There's meetings that are happening, that decisions are being made in the back room of government in these cabinet meetings that are then pushed through in the House that is not appropriate. And a similar thing happened a couple of years ago with City Council in Vancouver, where Vision had 8 seats of the 11, and so which gave them a supermajority. And so they would have their caucus meetings, and people were arguing, and I would agree with this, is that they were making decisions in these caucus meetings that were then pre-decided when they came to the council meetings, and then just would boom, 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 they'd do their little speaking points.
That's right. Guess what? Point Grey Road shut down, bike lane, done.
Bam, doom, bam.
Yeah.
And if there was anybody opposed to it within their caucus, they wouldn't show up to those meetings, surprisingly, in public.
Funny that.
Kerry Jang, nowhere to be found. He was driving his
So did you ever bring it up
somewhere else because he loved Point Grey Road so much. So it came up, actually people were arguing, and Jeff Meggs basically said, we don't make decisions in these caucus meetings. We just, we sit around and chat about stuff, and I'm paraphrasing, but basically he's saying, there's nothing to see here, people. We don't make decisions in these caucus meetings. They're simply discussions about things, and then we go into the chamber with an open mind and basically shut down, because there's no way, how do we know that they aren't making decisions? But it was so clear. There's no way to prove it. Bug the room, what are you going to do? So you have to assume that they're not making decisions, and that they come into the meeting, at the public meeting, and are open-minded. But of course they weren't. They were so clearly scripted, and they just lockstep in their voting, and were precise.
The messaging was just a little too
concise. They had a spokesperson
concise.
ready to go out to talk to the media. I mean, it was so obvious, and but it disappeared slowly. Jeff responded to that. The mayor didn't. It was Jeff who spoke to it, and it kind of went away. And so you can say you want to change these things, but it's really complicated to say, okay, we're going to change the way things are done, because there's an argument to say, well, we don't make decisions in these meetings. We don't.
Yeah.
We're just, you meet, don't you, as a caucus? You don't you meet as a, come on. It's a tough one. And of course, anybody who gets in government, if, let's say, Elizabeth May became the prime minister, the chances of her changing that rule would be very, I doubt it. I highly doubt it, that you never see that happen. Change, actually.
Yeah, because once you're in power,
you're like, I like this system.
You say this all the time, because this is what got me here, so why would I change it? It's kind of like Prime Minister Trudeau campaigning on the idea that he's going to change the electoral system, and then
what happened to
be
that
like,
idea?
wait a minute, I am
Turns out nobody cares about that.
No, I've asked around.
It's an issue that really does not resonate to the electorate as an issue to win or lose an election. Changing government and proportional representation, these things don't matter to people. They really don't.
Yeah.
They don't. They want to know how you're going to solve homelessness.
And how I'm going to get a cab.
Or how you're going to get a cab.
Okay, so before we get into ride sharing and ride hailing services, it's important. George _ Affleck at Jody with a Y Vance, Jody Vance, at UnSpun Podcast. Give it a follow. It's an excellent resource on Twitter. Go to theorca.ca to read my column or watch our podcast.
Subscribe to the Fin.
Subscribe to the
daily
Fin.
Email
Is an excellent point. Mm-hmm. And also, right now, you can read George at the Daily Hive Vancouver.
That's right.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Ride sharing. Mm-hmm. Wait a minute, you're an Evo member?
Oh, yeah.
Is that real? I thought you were so in love with your van.
I was at the outdoor cinema at the at Stanley Park with the fam.
Love it. Oh, Jurassic Park in the Park.
Yeah, that's right. And
awesome.
The original. And we
scary.
And so, but we got there. We were there pretty early, but we still were way in the back, and we had our blankets. We didn't have fancy chairs. And so Evo was going around saying, "Hey, if you join Evo, you can sit at the front." I'm like, all right, let's do this. Let's join this Evo thing. I mean, I used to be a member of the car co-op, and I was the chair of the car co-op, the Moto, way back.
Yeah.
I was the first chair of Moto.
I did not know that.
Yes, for the first 3 years of its birth as CAN. Anyway, so Evo is a much different platform. Anyways, I joined, and
why wouldn't you? I'm an Evo member and Car2Go member.
Yeah.
And I do use it. And if I could get
I just
a
feel
taxi,
like Car2Go is like you're in the Shriners Parade.
but you can get the nice BMW now. They've got the big ones now.
That's true.
You can get the nice
but
big.
those little smart cars.
I know they're wild, but for short trips, right?
Sure.
If I could count on a taxi or ride-hailing service, which frankly I've used once in my life in New York. But if I could count on a taxi when I needed it, and I could access a Car2Go or an Evo or what have you, I'd probably give up my car.
Yep.
So that's kind of within my column this week. It was a jumping off point last week when we were talking on this topic, when Lyft had made the announcement they are coming to Metro Vancouver, and all of the restrictions that the government was going to put on or not hadn't come out yet. So I said, well, what about Uber Eats and DoorDash and Skip the Dishes?
You made some really good points in your article, of course.
Congestion is what people...
driving around.
When you lose your ability to argue why we shouldn't have rideshare, it comes back to congestion. It's going to flood our roads. It's going to be crazy, everybody. But if I'm not in the car going to the restaurant, it's not congestion, because I can send a car to the restaurant to get my food and bring it back to me. But if I actually get in the car and go to the restaurant, that's congestion. So that was kind of, read my column for more on that.
And this whole, I find, I know Richard, there's lots of people who fight this whole issue.
Yes.
And I always find it curious, because this is all a play, all this ride sharing is a play for self-driving cars and controlling that market, right?
Yeah.
And so in the future, there'll be electric cars, they'll drive, or they'll stop, they'll pull over when there's nobody in it, and it's much better than everybody owning cars, driving around, parking them in places. That argument
Insuring
I find so bizarre to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, so your column was very good in that.
Thank you. But doing the rideshare, like right as I was writing my column, the government made the announcements on the flag rates for Lyft will be the same as taxis, meaning the $325 or $395 that's already on the meter when you get into a cab.
I don't think I've ever spent less than $5 on an Uber when I've traveled.
But I think that the big one is the boundaries, like as taxis.
There is no boundary, basically.
No boundary for Lyft. And that's huge.
That's the whole problem, right? If you're anywhere and you want to, even on, and right now the taxis on the weekends, on Fridays and Saturdays, can drive outside the city.
But they won't.
But they won't, of course not. They want to get the big money and drive around circles downtown. So all these guys come into the city from the suburbs. So when you're in the suburbs, you can't get a cab because they're all downtown making the short trips, making the money.
Before driving home.
Before driving home, maybe take the last ride home if you're lucky. And so with Uber and Lyft and all these programs, they can get out to the burbs, and the guy can get a trip back, and they can charge whatever the going rate might be at that moment in time. It's surge pricing, so you might pay a premium to get out there. But the taxi guys are obviously not happy about this.
They're not happy, and they're drawing the card that often comes up, but this one really got me. It's because when they can no longer argue, because it really is protectionist for the Vancouver cab companies, right? That these...
It's an oligopoly. It's protecting the oligopoly.
The oligopoly.
Yes.
That's our word of the day?
Oligopoly. Look it up.
I'm going to have to Google
Hashtag it.
I'm going to Google oligopoly. That's not
It's a multiple monopolies.
Right.
Working together.
So the downtown cabs, though, not having the out boundary cabs allowed in except for on weekends when they can. They can only do so much business, and they're maxed out at that. Now are finding that because of that model, those boundaries remain in place for the cabs, but not ride hailing. Yeah. So now it's like, damn it.
Yeah.
Like, had you just relaxed this stupid, bloody rule years ago when we needed it relaxed, 24/7, 365. Like, come on.
And now they're also, I think,
pissed.
And they're pissed. They're also going to be worried about losing drivers.
Right. So losing drivers to the ride-hailing services, because why would you work for a cab company under their...
if you can take your
take the profits
2016 Lexus.
Yeah.
And drive around people from the airport.
Why not?
Why not?
But the taxi owners are pissed, and they're verbally pissed.
They're more vocal than they have been in a while, I've noticed. That they've been quite quiet, and I guess because they were in negotiation, and I guess they're not happy with how things have ended up, and I think they're surprised that Lyft is coming in faster than they thought.
The government broke their promise. I'm like, really? Do tell.
No, now they're using the whole the cabs that are for accessible cabs for wheelchairs. They're saying
those will be the first to go.
Gone. And that might be the case, and I think that it's a valid point, and I think that government needs to be aware of that, and TransLink needs to step up if that happens. I think that we of course need to have accessibility.
But how about do a ride-sharing app that has? Because I understand there's Handy Dart, right? But if TransLink created because I know people that aren't able to drive for whatever reason, visible or other disabilities, and can't get a cab, can't get a Handy Dart, and are perfectly willing to pay to get where they're going. So why not design a business model that caters to a huge portion, an ever-growing portion of our public? Because
there is a company called Driving Miss Daisy, by the way, that does for seniors and drives them around and picks them up and will take their groceries and all those things. So there is.
It's brilliant.
It's all digital, all online.
But
it's
more
all
of that.
happening. And if there's a market, the market will find it. If there's no market and it's something that needs to be done, then government needs to step in.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
So we'll see what happens. But I just want my Uber and my Lyft to get to places where I need to get to.
September 3rd is when Lyft is taking applications for drivers. You need your Class 4 license, which means make sure you know how to turn a semi-trailer.
I'm going to get my Class 4 and I want to get my Lyft license just for the fun of it.
Do it. Record it.
I got to get a new car because my 2003 Toyota Sienna, a minivan, which I will make sure all 3 kids experience until they're 18. So I got 11-year-olds. I got to keep that 2003 vehicle
7
going
more
for
years.
7 years. And then I'll get my Lyft license and I'll get my fancy BMW or something.
Your midlife crisis
and
car?
pick up people from the airport.
Nice.
And tour them around. Say, hey, let me show you the city that I used to be a counselor in. I'll show you over here.
Couple things I wanted to take care of housekeeping stuff. Remember Doug Doogie?
Doogie, your buddy.
Doogie, my buddy.
And Amanda's buddy, because UnSpun podcast is
It was really
managed by the ever provocative Amanda with her tweets.
I loved it.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't think Doug's going to call anybody cute on Twitter.
Well, I can call me cute if you want.
Yuki, there you go. George
I don't mind.
underscore Affleck. No, but I have to give props to Doug, who's Doogie on Twitter, because he actually wrote a letter to McLean Kay, our editor-in-chief, feedback. And I'm paraphrasing because it's a nice long email, but we're allowed to agree to disagree. And he really enjoys our show. And
Doogie.
he really wanted to put the topic that he wanted to discuss forward. He felt that I was being unfair to the topic. I wasn't. We
It was
just
Trump
don't.
related to
It's
Trump.
Trump
something.
related.
Yeah.
We don't do a lot of Trump talk on the program. But we do read our tweets and we do appreciate feedback. You can always at George underscore Affleck, at Jody Vance, at UnSpun Podcast, at the Orca BC is the Orca's Twitter handle. TheOrca.ca is where you find our podcast and our
I
columns.
hope you're all taking notes.
You can rewind this. It's fine. 15 seconds back. The button's right there.
Follow the scroll underneath.
Follow the
Follow the
scroll.
bouncing ball.
But you can also follow George on his new column, The Daily Hive. It's going to be a regular column, I predict.
Oh, boy.
I want it to be. I know you hate writing so much, but you're very good at it. Do you watch Dancing with the Stars?
I'm going to say maybe.
I don't.
Sometimes I'm not an avid viewer, but I
You get the
of course,
highlights.
yes.
Yeah.
If there are
Sean-
celebrities who I'm passionate
Sean
about.
Spicer? You going to watch Sean Spicer on?
This is interesting. Yeah, Sean Spicer. I mean, I think there'll be a lot of people watching that. I mean, I just don't
He'll
know
get
why, I
voted
don't know
away.
why you
First
would. Yeah,
up.
I don't know why you would choose to be on that show. To be honest, I mean, it's such. I mean, as a pseudo celebrity, but the host.
Oh, yeah.
Bergeron.
Tom
Bergeron has tweeted out. If people look at his Twitter, he was quite.
It's like, it's not my choice.
Not my choice, but he's not slamming them.
No.
But he's trying to say the point of the show is it's supposed to be an escape, and clearly he's worried that this will be too political in that it will cause people to talk about the wrong thing as opposed to crappy dancing. They'll talk about crappy politics. So
It's a thing.
thing.
I predict he will be voted out quickly. And hey, Sean, it's spicy. Prove me wrong. How about Sarah Huckabee
yeah,
Sanders?
she got a new job.
I thought we were done with her for a while, but I guess we are because I don't watch Fox News.
Well, if you want somebody who seems quite angry and miserable all the time, then that's
But will
on
she
your television.
Will she change
Turn
that?
to
She is
Fox.
a paid political analyst or contributor, they called her, starting
I just don't
in
know why you
September.
want to watch somebody who has so much disdain for human beings when she talks. She's just the way she talks is quite like you're all idiots, and I don't really feel like I need to be told that by somebody who I'm watching television. It's going to be interesting to watch these two people on television this September. I guess it is, right?
Yeah, September. But it's still August for now. If you're downloading this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, YouTube, share us around with people. Let's get people talking about politics north of the 49th, because just talking about Sarah Huckabee Sanders there kind of gave me how people just don't know necessarily what's happening in Canada, and we should engage.
It's a lot of stuff going on next month.
A lot. And it's my birthday tomorrow.
What?
Wrap it up! See ya!
Bye.